Hello and welcome back to Karma Stories. I'm Rob and I hope you are having a day that doesn't suck. Today I have a few stories for you from the Malicious Compliance subreddit. Before we start today, make sure to check out the website for my woodshop at CanadianRob.com. On there, I'm making hand-turned pens in resin and in wood. They feel amazing in the hand and they make a statement. Check them out for yourself at CanadianRob.com. Alright, on to today's stories. Let's jump right in. This story comes to us from Feral Faye. You want me to stop working overtime? Sure. Good luck hitting your deadlines. I originally posted this as a comment on another thread, but a few people messaged me saying I should give it its own post. So, here we are. About 10 years ago, I worked for a mid-sized manufacturing company that did contract work for a lot of big-name tech companies. We were always under pressure to meet tight deadlines, and it was common for employees, especially on my team, to rack up a ton of overtime. We weren't forced, but we were compensated really well for it. I was young, hungry for the extra cash, and honestly proud of helping the team hit goals. Enter new management. Our old supervisor retired and was replaced by a guy I'll call Dan. Dan came in hot, trying to shake things up and streamline operations. Classic. One of his first big changes, he decided that too much overtime was making him look bad to higher-ups. Said it made it seem like he couldn't manage his team's workload. So he called a meeting and announced that going forward, we were not allowed to log overtime unless it was pre-approved in writing. And spoiler, he wasn't going to approve it. We tried to warn him. We told him how much we actually needed that extra time to hit the ridiculous deadlines that were promised to clients. He waved it off. Said we should work smarter, not harder. So, fine. We did exactly what he wanted. We all stopped working overtime cold turkey. No staying late to help the next shift. No logging in early. No coming in on Saturdays to prep for big shipments. We worked our 8-hour shifts and clocked out, nothing more. At first, Dan was thrilled. He kept bragging in meetings about how he'd fixed the overtime problem. But within 2 weeks, the cracks started showing. Orders got delayed, shipments missed deadlines, customers started calling, pissed off about late deliveries. Dan started staying late himself trying to figure out why things were falling apart, but the dude had no clue what actually went into the day-to-day work. It all came to a head in about a month. We missed a massive delivery for one of our biggest clients, and they threatened to pull their contract. Dan ended up in a panic, trying to throw overtime at us to catch up. By then, most of us were over it. A few people bailed and found other jobs. I stayed long enough to watch him eat crow, then I moved on too. The best part, the higher-ups eventually figured out that his no overtime policy was the root of the problem, and he was let go, aka fired, about 6 months after he started. Moral of the story, be careful what you wish for when you try to fix things that aren't broken. Jumping down to the comments on this one, we have one from a user called Vizatriani. It says, it always floors me when new people come in and feel the need to put their stamp on things without understanding the rhythm of the business first. So Dan came in and shook things up because Dan thought that they could streamline everything themselves and make it better for everybody, but Dan didn't realize that the real solution to this problem was to hire more people so that nobody needed to work overtime, and so that all of their deliveries would still get done on time. One of the major issues in this story is that this was a very big management failure in the first place. If your employees have to work overtime all the time, then you don't have enough people on staff, or your timelines are just wrong. So I think management here just needs to work on their promises to the customers and push the deadlines out a little bit, and then they wouldn't be paying so much in overtime. This story comes to us from Lady Shadow Facts. It was your idea, boss, so you explain it. A couple years ago, I was asked to create an internal competition for employees. I designed the whole thing, the format, the communication strategy, how entries would be judged, everything. It ran nationally, was a hit, and the winning entry even went on to win an external national award. Fast forward to the next year, and my boss is asked to give a presentation at the award ceremony about the competition. Naturally, since I built it, I put together his entire presentation. The slides, his speaking notes, even rehearsed it with him. Turns out, some other companies that were at the presentation wanted to learn how we did it. My boss sets up a few meetings with their reps, invites me along, and says, "I'll do most of the talking, but I'd like you to listen in." I'm thinking, great, what a cool opportunity, and it's nice of him to include me. Then the meeting starts. He opens with, "So this was my idea from the start," and proceeds to go on and on for around 15 minutes about his vision and how he supposedly led the strategy from day one. He went so far as to say that I was invited to learn some more about the strategy since, let's call me Sarah, was part of the team who set up on the day. I was stunned. I kept my face neutral and nodded along. Then came the questions. Simple ones too. Logistics, structure, what tech we used, how we got employee buy-in. He fumbles, repeats himself, starts sweating, and then starts turning to me with, "Actually, Sarah can probably elaborate on that." That's when the malicious compliance kicked in. With my best poker face and a sweet smile, I replied, "Oh, I'm not too sure on that one. Your strategic vision was really integral here. I wouldn't want to misrepresent it." He tried again later with another question. "That's a great point, but again, this was your brainchild. I was only part of the setup team." He floundered through the rest of the meeting. The reps were polite but clearly unimpressed. Afterward, he was quiet for the rest of the day. Next time, maybe don't claim sole credit for someone else's work, especially when you can't communicate its strategy or the work behind its implementation. Jumping down to the comments on this one, we have one from a user called ProudCatMom2021. It says, "Talk about making someone choke on their own words. Was he ever dumb enough to try and pull that stunt again? Or did he learn from his lesson?" OP responded and said, "I went on maternity leave and never went back." Another commenter down below called Fewbar said, "As a somewhat high-level manager, I can't imagine anything more counterproductive than not giving credit to subordinates who came up with a brilliant idea. It costs nothing to give credit. It increases engagement and enhances morale, and it reflects well on managers who are seen as willing to develop and mentor their staff." OP responded and said, "Exactly, and people know that you give the support and approvals and have at least a hand in the decision making. I was told a very long time ago that in a management position, you should always surround yourself with people who are as smart as you or smarter than you. Then, you let them do their jobs. You give them credit where credit is needed. If a manager's always trying to steal the show, there is no morale for the people underneath them. But if they recognize those people and acknowledge the work that they're doing, they become a good manager. And even the people above will see that that manager is doing a great job keeping their team going because everybody likes that manager." This story comes to us from Beer Belly Be Gone. I wish. "Tank driver tells me he doesn't want to see or hear from me, so he doesn't. Back when I was in the army, my tank driver was someone who you'd really not want to spend time with, unless you absolutely had to. Like for instance, you were in a tank crew with him and needed the tank to actually get from point A to point B. When it comes to crew breakdown in a tank, it goes like this. Tank gunner, my position, coolest job in the tank. You get to shoot the big pew-pew. You also have to do the least amount of maintenance work on the tank. Loader does most of the B work in the tank. Has to carry and load multiple heavy tank shells. Not much maintenance work, but spends like 2 to 3 hours cleaning the 3 machine pew-pews. Driver drives the tank. Pretty simple, but a good driver will give you a smooth ride. A bad driver will make you feel every dip and bump in the terrain. Does the most maintenance work since they are in charge of the tank tracks and bogies, steel wheels in the tracks. Tank commander knows how to do all the positions, doesn't do any maintenance since they are usually in briefings on maintenance day. A good crew knows how to begin to think alike, doing things together without asking. It helps that you sleep together in the tank, so you all get to know each other pretty intimately. Nothing like peeing in a water bottle to remove any shyness between crew members. When it comes to maintenance, you can either have all the gunners from the platoon get together and work on all the platoon's tanks together, same with the drivers, or each crew can do their own tank. Usually, we prefer the first option because it goes quicker. In this case, my crew was sent to support an infantry exercise on a different base in the middle of the desert on our own. We were simulating a whole tank company, but budget cuts means only one tank was sent. Sunday, we got to base and deployed with our tank down into the exercise area. Monday to Wednesday night, we exercised. Thursday morning, the drill ended and it was maintenance day. Crucial element here is that you don't get to go home for the weekend until your maintenance is complete. The flip side being that you could leave as soon as maintenance was completed and signed off on. The entire exercise, the driver was being a complete butt. I don't know if his girlfriend broke up with him or whatever, but he was even more annoying than usual. Aside from his attitude, his driving was so bad, the TC almost broke a rib one time, and I nearly got a black eye when shooting in motion, and he, unintentionally I'm sure, aimed straight for a small ditch. By the time Thursday came around, the loader and I couldn't get rid of him for the weekend quickly enough. But alas, first, maintenance beckoned. One of the tasks the gunner had to do is clean the cannon with an oiled cleaning rod. This is a 3-man job, loader in the tank, and 2 people clean it from the outside. It can't be done by one person no matter how strong they are. I asked the driver to help me since the loader was inside the tank. The driver angrily told me that he didn't want to hear from me or speak to me. No worries, I found somebody to give me a hand for a few minutes and we got the job done. I completed the rest of my maintenance work pretty quickly. Like I said, not much actually, with the help of the loader, and then I gave him a hand cleaning the machine pew-pews. The 2 of us were done before lunchtime, just waiting for the TC to sign off on our work so we could start our weekend early. Driver, on the other hand, realized that he didn't have any other drivers to help him maintain the tracks. Tension, tightening bolts, greasing ports, etc., and he had told us to F off. He was still working on the tank when it got dark and was told to stop for safety reasons. He had to continue the job on Friday morning and missed out on a day of leave. I want to say that his attitude changed on Sunday when we got back to base, but you know it didn't. Thankfully, after about 2 more months of his nonsense, he was transferred out. I have no idea where he is today. I'm still good friends with the loader and TC. The driver can get bent. If you're stuck in a little space like a tank with a bunch of people, you better hope that you get along with all of them and don't give anybody a reason to dislike you while you're all in there working together. Because it's a small space, it's a bunch of people, and you never know when you're gonna need those people. You be a dick to them, they're gonna be a dick to you, and they're not gonna back you up. This story comes to us from GM Sorry But, accidentally destroying important manager documents cause they forced me in to give my doctor's note, despite being sick. A little bit of background. Due to horrible teachers and my easily intimidated personality, I developed the fear of making mistakes, since I was getting yelled at constantly for making some. Now, my body tried to avoid school and the stress that comes with it by developing the habit of vomiting, to prove my mother I was sick so I could stay home. Problem was, my body tries it a lot when I get stressed out. Now, I can suppress that habit to a certain degree, if I focus on my breathing and close my eyes, but sooner or later, I have to leave the stress-causing situation, or I vomit. Now, a little bit of German background, since I don't know if this concept exists in other countries. We'll call it Zeitarbeit, and Google translate it to temporary employment. But long story short, it just means that you don't apply at the company you want to work for, you apply for the Zeitarbeit company, ZC, who then finds jobs for you. You go to the ZC, give any important information they need to find you a job you don't totally hate, and if they find something, they call you, and you have an interview with the new company you may work for. Then, if you agree to work there, you are a temporary employee for 6 months. After the 6 months, they either let you go if the company believes it didn't work out, or you get hired and now have a full-time job. In theory, that sounds awesome. In practicality, the company spares money if they let go of the temporary employee and circle to new ones, so your chances of staying is barely non-existing. Not to mention, in the 6 months, they don't need a reason to let you go other than to say it doesn't work out. Now to the story. The first 2 jobs I got through ZC, I try hard to impress them, doing overtime, work more outside my job description, always being on time, and never being sick. I ignored my mental problems and drowned them at home to endure everything. However, I wouldn't be here if I got hired. This story takes place in 2018, my fourth job, a factory where I have to pack and sort stuff. However, now I was far less enthusiastic. No overtime, keeping to my job description, but I still was always on time and stayed my 40 hours a week. However, the manager demanded overtime nearly daily. I wasn't going to do it, not for minimum wage, and she didn't like it. But I was doing my job, so I believe she kept me in for the full 6 months before they let me go. But then, I made an absolute fatal mistake by daring to get sick. I got a cyst very close to my private area and could barely walk, stand, or even sit. Laying was uncomfortable, but at least not painful. I went to the doctor, got antibiotics and a doctor's note for 7 days, 5 for the antibiotics, and 2 to see if it helped enough. I called in my job to state I was sick for a week, but my manager demanded I give it to her in person, or she would let me go then and there. Now, I was annoyed, tired, and in pain that I have to go in, since I was just in my second month working there, so I accepted and my parents drove me in. I waddled like an X-legged penguin through the factory into her office. She didn't see me walk since she was writing something. I put the doctor's note on her desk, close to some other documents. She looked up at me and started talking a lot. Now, you can imagine that condescending Karen tone in her voice. She started lecturing me on how she dislikes I don't do overtime, and now that I'm lazy and went to the doctor to get a week off paid vacation, that I need to work on my working morale, and that my chances of getting hired are very slim, and I need to put in 110% if I want to have a chance. Now, my pain around my private area started worsening due to me standing, so I barely listened to her after that, but I noticed her voice got louder and louder, and she somehow talked herself into a rage, nearly yelling at this point, and I felt my stomach started turning. I started my strategy to keep my stomach calm since I knew it would be maybe a few minutes of her complaining before I can leave. I tried to cut in to explain that I need to go home to rest, but she had none of it and interrupted me, telling me how disrespectful it is to interrupt someone. Cue my malicious compliance. I stopped calming down my stomach and let it do what it wants to do. And surprise, surprise, not even after a minute, everything comes out, hitting her desk and covering some of her documents and half of my doctor's note. Her face was absolutely priceless, though I wished I could have enjoyed it more next to my pain and new taste. After her initial shock and silence, she finally sent me home to rest. I still think about it till today. After the week, I came back rather healthy and I got pulled into her office where she and another boss and manager waited for me. After a few words back and forth, they asked me why I didn't even try to turn around as I vomited, since I apparently damaged or destroyed some important documents. And even though I was not obligated to it, I explained the cyst I had, that I couldn't even walk, stand, or turn around without a lot of pain, let alone going to the next restroom or trash bin. And that I shouldn't have even been there in the first place, since a doctor's note can be handed in after I come back. The other manager and boss looked super pissy at my manager. After more unimportant back and forth, I returned back to work. I still got let go after 6 months, but I wasn't sorry about this job. I then decided to start focusing on my mental health and my addiction problem. For the last bit of fact, the manager was gone quickly after me, and the factory was destroyed at the end of 2024. According to some of my old colleagues, they were constantly hiring and firing, and more people were quitting on their own. Jumping down to the comments on this one, we have one from a user called BSB Hardick. It says, "Hope you have someone to talk to like a therapist to go through your issues, cause stress-induced vomiting is not at all normal." OP responded and said, "I have a few people from friends to some experts, but the more I found out about my mental health, the more it revealed how much I suppressed in order to function. But I'm still alive somehow, so that's a good thing." Alright, with my understanding of the labor laws in Germany, it sounded to me more like this story was from the US and not from Germany themselves. It's actually kind of comforting to know that people have shitty managers taking advantage of those labor laws, all around the world, and not just here in North America where I live. Alright, I think we'll end this one here today. If you enjoyed this episode, I encourage you to follow us on your favorite podcasting platform, or if you're on YouTube, please hit that subscribe button and drop a like on the video. It really does help us out. I thank you for watching and listening. I hope you have a wonderful day that doesn't suck, and we'll see you tomorrow.